going to tackle about one of the famous works of Ernest Hemingway. This is entitled The Sun Also Rises. But of course, before that, let me introduce to you who is Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway is an American novelist, a short story writer, a journalist, and a sportsman. He was born on July 21, 1899 at Oak Park, United States. His death was on July 2, 1961 at Ketchum, Idaho, United States. His notable awards are Pulitzer Prize in 1953 and Nobel Prize in Literature in 1954. His famous works are Green Hills of Africa, The Nick Adams Stories, Men Without Women, For Whom the Bell Tolls, The Sun Also Rises, the one that we're going to tackle later, and then The Old Man in the Sea, A Movable Feast, A Farewell to Arms, Winner Take Nothing, and the last one is To Have and Have Not. The Sun Also Rises was published on October 22, 1926, but it was banned in Boston in 1930, in Ireland in 1953, and in Riverside and San Jose in 1960. It is banned because of its language and use of profanity, and its central focus on sex, promiscuity, and the overall decadence of its characters. It was also burned by the Nazis in Germany in 1933, possibly for the decadence of its characters and or for its realistic depictions of war. For the major characters of our story, let's begin with Jake Barnes. Jake Barnes is also the narrator of this story, The Sun Also Rises. Okay, at the start of the novel, he is an expatriate working as a journalist in Paris. He served in World War I, in which he suffered an injury that made him impotent. This hinders his close relationship to Brett Ashley. He typifies the lost generation, always seeking escape and finding no meaning in life after the horrors and intensity of the war. Next is Robert Kahn. Robert Kahn is an ex-boxer of Princeton and also a writer. In this story, he is the only male character who is not veteran with war. His character from this story is a divorced man, but at the beginning of the novel, he is in a relationship with Frances Klein. Robert Cohn believes in love and romance and the ideas he finds in literature, but he gets on the nerves of most of the other men in novel by the way he pathetically hangs around Brett and with his superior Jewish way. He becomes a target for the other men's dissatisfaction. Next is Lady Brett Ashley. This girl is a British, charismatic, and independent woman with a drinking problem. Brett Ashley is Jake's love of his life. Jake loves Brett Ashley so much, and Brett Ashley also loves Jake. But both of them find Jake's impotence, and they think that that impotence would be an obstacle of the relationship. So Brett Ashley decided to leave Jake. But maybe that is the reason why Brett Ashley is terminally unhappy and always wanting someone else when she tend to have a relationship with other guys. Is Bill Gorton. Bill Gorton is Jake's buddy, our narrator's friend, and also a writer who moved back to America after the war. Bill Gorton is a joker. Okay, so he is using humor to hide from and disguise the horrors of his experiences of the war. He goes along with the group and attached to Brett, but getting caught in the romantic business anyway. Alternately, peacemaking and joining in the fighting. Next is Montoya. Montoya is the owner of the hotel in Pamplona where Jake and his friends, as well as the best bullfighters, stay. He tries to protect Romero's integrity and values, the pure passion of the aficionados over everything else, which is why he shares a special bond with Jake. Next is Pedro Romero. Pedro Romero is a young man, a good looking bullfighting who is skillful and beautiful that Brett falls in love with him. His skill and subtlety in the ballroom impress everybody and create genuine emotion in the crowd. He seems at times to be at one with the boss. When Con learns of Romero's effect on Brett, he fights him. Romero and Brett run away together, but Brett leaves him soon when he tries to transform Brett into a traditional woman. Now, let's move to our minor character of the story, and let's start with Frances Klein. Frances Klein is Con's girlfriend at the start of the novel. She is a social climber who uses Con for his money, but becomes a possessive and wants to marry him when she realizes she is losing her beauty. But Con eventually leaves her. Next is Mike Campbell. Mike Campbell is Brett's fiance and a war veteran. He gets drunk all the time and starts fights. His insecurity about Brett causes him to break down and attack others. He is also renewed for being a bankrupt. Next is Wilson Harris. Wilson Harris is an Englishman whom Jake and Bill met on their fishing trip. The threesome share much in common, including the war, and Harris is sad to part with them at the end of the trip. Next is Georgette. Georgette is a Parisian prostitute whom Jake picks up and takes club near the beginning of the novel, but he finds her dull and goes off with Brett instead. Next is Belmonte. Belmonte is Romero's bullfighting rival in the final fight. He cannot live up to his own legend and is outshone by Romero's genuine skill. Next is Count Mipipoulos. Mipipopoulos. Sorry. Okay. A rich Greek expatriate who takes a liking to Brett and is kind to Jake. His goal seems always to get the most enjoyment out of life. He has been through many wars and has developed opinions about values in love. Next is Harvey Stone. Harvey Stone is another expatriate friend of Jake. When Jake meets him in Paris, he is broke and unhappy and lashes out Robin Con. Next is Edna, a friend of Bill Carton's, who along with Bill and others gets thrown out of a bar in a Pamplona after nearly starting a brawl. And the last two characters are Braddock and Crumb. Braddock is a friend of Jake in Paris, and Crumb is a newspaperman who tells Jake that he soon plans to quit and go out to see the country. The Sun Also Rises follows a group of young American and British expatriates as they wander through Europe in the mid-1920s. They are all members of the cynical and disillusioned lost generation who came of age during World War I, year 1914 to 1918. Two of the novel's main characters, Lady Brett Ashley and Jake Barnes, typify the lost generation. Jake, the novel's narrator, is a journalist and World War I veteran. During the war, Jake suffered an injury that rendered him impotent. After the war, Jake moved to Paris, where he lives near his friend, the Jewish author Robert Cohn. Jake's former lover, Brett, also lives in Paris. Jake and Brett met and fell in love during the war, when Brett, a volunteer nurse, helped treat Jake's injuries. Although it is not said explicitly, it is implied that they are not together because Jake is impotent and Brett unwillingly to give up sex. When Con confesses his romantic interest in Brett to Jake, Jake cautions him against pursuing a relationship with Brett, who is engaged to be married to Mike Campbell, a Scottish War veteran. Both Brett and Con eventually leave Paris. Brett sets off for Saint Sebastian and Con for the countryside. A few weeks after their departure, the writer Bill Gordon arrives in Paris. Together, Jake and Bill decide to go to Spain to attend the Fiesta de San Fermin in Pamplona, Spain, to see the running of the bulls and the bullfights. Before they left, Jake and Bill ran into Brett, who was recently returned from Spain, and her fiancé, Mike. Brett and Mike asked to accompany Jake and Bill to Pamplona. In private, Brett reveals to Jake that she spent the last few weeks in Spain with Con. Okay, now let's proceed to the theme of the story. The main theme of this story is the lost generation. Its main characters, Jake, Brett, and their acquaintances, are mentally, emotionally, and morally lost. Their lives lack meaningful foundations, and their romantic attachments are fleeting. And of course, there is always a lesson in every story. In this novel, we find that it emphasizes the human's life. It infers that the true meaning of life is happiness. Jake Barnes, our major character of the story, feel the absence of good values in life after the disturbing World War. And the absence of it created the emptiness of his life. Remember that he's impotent, which is the result of the World War, became the reason why the love of his life, Brett Ashley, left her. Because both of them actually see that his impotent is an obstacle of the relationship. Now, let's try to define the title of this novel. If you have a Bible there, kindly open at the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 5. It says there that the sun also arises, and the sun goes down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. Clearly, that the title of this story pertains to human's life. It expresses the idea that one generation fades into another, and the sun will continue to rise while each generation passes on.
He knows just what you